You know how sometimes something just lands in the tech world and it makes you kind of step back, like blockchain did for digital money?
Oh, yeah, definitely. A real potential game changer.
Well, there's this buzz now around a new AI company. Might be
Mhm.
doing something similar for, how AI actually works.
Huh, interesting. I mean, we're seeing LLMs do amazing stuff, but that whole power versus efficiency thing,
Hmm.
it's still a huge puzzle.
Exactly. And this company seemed to be hitting that exact point.
So who is it?
They're called Deep Cogito, just emerged from stealth mode.
Ah, Deep Cogito. Okay.
So yeah, our deep dive today, it's all about them, their new idea. Hybrid AI models. They're calling the first batch Cogito 1.
Gotcha. Hybrid models. And for our listeners, the ones always wanting the inside track on cutting edge tech.
Mm.
Our mission here is basically to unpack this.
Right. What makes Deep Cogito tick? What's this hybrid thing really mean?
And, what could the impact be? We've got some TechCrunch, VentureBeat articles, plus some other background material to go on. Should be good.
Okay, let's get right into it then. Deep Cogito, hybrid AI. What's the core innovation here?
So, the main idea, as I understand it, is that these models can, switch between modes. A reasoning mode for hard stuff and a standard mode for easier queries.
Okay. Like shifting gears.
Exactly. Think about your own brain, right? You don't use maximum brain power to check the time.
Ah, true. Hopefully not.
But solving a complex work problem, that needs focus, step-by-step thinking.
Hmm.
So the insight seems to be building AI that can do that too. Allocate resources smartly. It's not just speed or complexity, it's about being efficient.
Okay, that clicks.
Yeah.
One source used a good analogy, comparing that reasoning AI, maybe like OpenAI's O1, to being great at, say, math or physics.
Right, because it can kind of fact check itself along the way. Very deliberate.
But that takes serious compute power and time.
Loads of it. Whereas standard AI is fast for simple things, but, well, it can fall flat on its face with complex stuff.
So the hybrid approach tries to bridge that gap.
That seems to be the goal. The best of both. For easy questions, run fast and lean in standard mode,
Okay.
but hit it with something tricky, it sort of recognizes that and kicks into the reasoning gear. More processing, more time, hopefully a better, more thought out answer.
So for the listener, the potential upside is, well, efficiency for simple stuff, right? Less wasted power.
Definitely.
But then real intelligence, that reasoning capability when you actually need it for the hard questions,
That's right.
sounds much more adaptable.
Adaptable, versatile, efficient. Yeah, that sums it up well.
And this brings us to their first product line then, Cogito 1.
Yep, the Cogito 1 family. And they're making a pretty big claim right away.
Oh, which is?
They're basically saying Cogito 1 beats the best open models out there at similar sizes. We're talking models from Meta, from DeepSeek.
Wow, okay. That is bold,
Mm.
especially coming right out of stealth.
It is. And what's also kind of raising eyebrows is the speed. Apparently, a small team put these together in about, 75 days?
75 days? That's
Yeah.
incredibly fast in this field. What does that suggest about how they're building these things?
It suggests they have a very focused, maybe quite novel development process. And look at the range they launched with.
Right, you mentioned sizes.
Yeah, from 3 billion parameters up to 70 billion already available.
Okay, 3 to 70 billion? That's quite a spread.
And they're saying even bigger ones are coming, up to 671 billion parameters.
Whoa. Okay, hold on. For listeners, parameters are sort of like a rough proxy for a model's complexity or potential capability, right? More parameters can mean smarter, though it's not always that simple.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
It indicates the scale. So offering this range and hinting at much larger ones, it signals serious ambition.
No kidding. So ambition is one thing, but what about the proof? Do these benchmark claims hold up?
Well, let's look at the numbers Deep Cogito shared from their internal tests.
Yeah.
Their biggest one right now, Cogito 70B.
Uh-huh.
When it's in that reasoning mode, the data suggests it does outperform DeepSeek's R1 on some math and language tasks.
Okay, that's significant. DeepSeek R1 is a major player.
Absolutely. But it gets more interesting. Turn the reasoning mode off on that same Cogito 70B,
Yeah.
and it apparently beats Meta's new Llama 4 Scout on LiveBench, which is a more general AI test.
So it's not just the reasoning trick. It seems competitive even in standard mode on broad tasks.
Which really highlights that versatility point again, doesn't it? It's aiming to be a strong all-rounder, boosted by the reasoning option.
And it's not just the giant 70B model making waves, is it? The smaller ones, too.
Right. The sources point out the Cogito 3B and 8B are also punching above their weight.
How so?
They're reportedly outperforming older Llama models and even DeepSeek's R1 Distill on tests like MMLU, Hellaswag, ARC.
Okay, MMLU. That tests broad knowledge, right? History, science, lots of different subjects.
Exactly. So doing well there suggests a good foundation.
But is it perfect? Any caveats?
Yes. Important point. The Cogito 8B, while strong overall, apparently scores lower on the math benchmark compared to the DeepSeek R1 Distill 8B.
Okay, so a specific weakness in math for that size, maybe?
It seems so. A good reminder that benchmarks are specific, and no model wins everywhere. There are always trade-offs.
Makes sense. What about the mid-range models, 14B, 32B?
Similar story. The data shows they're beating their Quinn 2.5 counterparts on aggregate scores, and the Cogito 32B with reasoning turned on gets really strong scores on both that broad MMLU test and the math benchmark.
Interesting. So reasoning helps it overcome that potential math weakness seen in the AP.
It seems to significantly boost performance there, yeah.
And back to the big 70B again. How does it stack up overall against the competition, standard mode versus reasoning mode?
Okay, so standard mode Cogito 70B seems to outperform Llama 370B and even edge out Llama 4 Scout on aggregate scores.
Impressive baseline.
Then flip on the reasoning mode, and it pulls ahead further, especially in general tasks and multilingual tests, compared to DeepSeek R1 Distill 70B.
So the general picture is reasoning mode gives them a real edge, but even without it, they're very competitive.
That seems to be the takeaway, though as we noted, there are specific areas, particularly some math benchmarks, where even the reasoning mode, Cogito 70B, might trail something like DeepSeek R1. It's not a clean sweep.
Still, it's a remarkable debut performance, which naturally makes you ask, how? How are they doing this? Especially so fast. They didn't just invent this whole cloth, did they?
No, and they're open about that. That's crucial. Cogito 1 is built on top of existing powerful open models, specifically Meta's Llama and Alibaba's Quinn.
Ah, okay. So they're standing on the shoulders of giants, so to speak.
Pretty much. They're leveraging those solid foundations. But the secret sauce, apparently, is in their training methods.
The training. That's where the magic happens.
That's what they claim, yeah. They say they've applied novel training techniques to boost the performance of these base models and, critically, to enable that toggleable reasoning feature.
Right, the hybrid switch. And do we know what this novel training involves?
They've actually given it a name. Iterated Distillation and Amplification, IDA.
Idea. Okay, sounds fancy. How does it differ from, say, RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback, which is pretty common?
Well, they position IDA as an alternative to RLHF and also to the standard teacher-student distillation where a smaller model learns from a bigger one.
So what's the core concept of IDA?
It's actually quite cool. Think of it like this. They give the model more compute time to really work through a problem and generate a better solution than it normally would.
Okay, like giving it extra thinking time.
Exactly. And then this is the key bit. They distill the process of how it reached that better solution, that improved reasoning, back into the model's parameters.
Ah, so it learns how to think better from its own more intensive effort.
Precisely. It creates a kind of self-improvement feedback loop.
The sources mentioned an analogy to Google's AlphaGo, right? How it learned Go by playing itself over and over.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. It suggests a way for the AI to get smarter through self-refinement rather than just relying on external human feedback or a fixed teacher model.
Does that imply, could this lead to AI developing capabilities beyond what humans explicitly taught it, generating genuinely new insights?
That's definitely the exciting long-term implication. It points towards a more scalable way to improve AI, potentially pushing boundaries beyond current methods. It's a really fascinating research direction.
Okay, fascinating tech. But for our listeners who might want to actually use these models, how easy is it? Is this locked up in a lab?
Not at all, and that's another big plus. Deep Cogito has made Cogito 1 very accessible.
How so?
You can download the models directly or use them via APIs on cloud platforms. They specifically mention Fireworks AI and Together AI.
Okay, cloud access is handy.
And they're also up on Hugging Face and Llama. So really easy for developers and researchers to grab them and start playing.
What about using them commercially? Any hurdles there? Licensing?
They're released under Llama license terms,
Yeah.
which generally means they're okay for commercial use up to a certain scale, 700 million monthly active users, I believe.
Right, that's the standard llama limit. Beyond that, you need a separate license from Meta.
Correct. But the key point is their commitment. Deep Cogito states all their models will be open source.
That's huge for the community. Fosters more innovation when things are open.
Absolutely. It lowers barriers and lets everyone build on the work.
Now, another feature you mentioned earlier, tool calling. How do the Cogito models handle interacting with external tools or APIs. That's becoming super important, right?
Yeah, vital for real-world usefulness. And here, Cogito seems to have put in specific effort. They talk about native tool calling capabilities.
Native meaning built in, not bolted on.
Exactly. For instance, their little Cogito 3B model can handle 4 types of tool calls right out of the box.
Well,
Simple, parallel, multiple tools, even parallel multiple.
and how does that compare?
Well, the sources note that a similar sized model, like Lame 33B, doesn't have native tool calling at all.
Ah, okay. Big difference. And is it just about having the feature, or do they perform well?
Performance seems strong too. Benchmarks show the 3B scores well on simple and multiple calls, and both the 3B and 8B models show good results across all those different tool calling types.
Better than previous models.
Significantly better than earlier Llama models in this area, according to the reports. It really suggests they focused on making these models practical, ready to interact with other systems.
And how do they achieve that? Just better training data?
They say it's a mix. Model architecture, training data, and specific post-training focus just on these tool use tasks. That last part seems key, dedicated tuning for tool interaction, which many base models might lack.
Makes sense. You need to train for the specific skills you want. So who's behind all this? Who are the founders of Deep Cogito?
The co-founders are Drishan Arora and Dhruv Malhotra.
And their backgrounds? Relevant.
Oh, very. Drishan Arora was a senior software engineer at Google. He actually led LLM modeling for their generative search efforts.
Okay, so deep in the trenches of LLMs and search.
And Dhruv Malhotra, former product manager at Google DeepMind, also worked on generative search.
Wow. So both coming directly from the heart of Google's AI and search work. They must have seen the challenges and opportunities firsthand.
You'd certainly think so. They have that hands-on experience with building and deploying these kinds of systems at scale.
And what's their ultimate goal? What's the big vision?
Well, it's pretty ambitious. They're aiming to build general superintelligence.
Okay, that's a term we hear thrown around. How do they define it?
Their definition is AI that not only beats most humans at most tasks, but, and this is the kicker, uncovers totally new capabilities, things we haven't even thought of yet.
That is expansive, going beyond imitation to true discovery.
A huge long-term goal. And it's worth noting their backers include South Park Commons, known for supporting ambitious early-stage tech ventures.
Right. So let's pull this all together. Thinking about our listener, what are the main takeaways here? What does Deep Cogito's arrival really signify?
I think the biggest thing is this hybrid approach. If it works as well as these early benchmarks suggest, it could be a major step forward in making AI both more powerful and more efficient.
Yeah, that ability to dynamically adjust processing based on the task. That feels like a really practical innovation. It could make deploying sophisticated AI much more feasible cost-wise.
Definitely. It tackles that core resource problem head on.
And for anyone interested in the tech itself, their open source commitment is key. It means these potentially groundbreaking models aren't locked away. People can experiment, build, integrate.
Exactly. It accelerates the whole field when advances are shared openly. And Deep Cogito isn't stopping here, right? They're planning bigger models.
Yep. They've mentioned larger models, mixture of expert types, and also continuing to train and improve the current Cogito 1 models. They see this as just the beginning.
It sounds like their philosophy is, benchmarks are nice, but real-world usefulness is the ultimate test.
Right. Adaptability, actual utility, they seem focused on that, and they've built partnerships with Hugging Face, RunPod, Fireworks, Together, Alama, all the key infrastructure players to support that.
It really does make you wonder if this hybrid, adaptable model design is the future direction for AI. More dynamic systems.
Seems plausible. So to quickly recap for everyone listening, Deep Cogito, new player, innovative hybrid AI models, Cogito 1, that switch between reasoning and standard modes.
Impressive early benchmark results challenging top open models. Strong focus on efficiency and versatility.
Fully open source, readily accessible via downloads, APIs, cloud platforms, built by experienced founders with a massive ambition. General superintelligence.
Yeah, the potential here is really about unlocking that next level of AI capability without necessarily demanding exponentially more resources for every single task. That balance is crucial.
Absolutely. And maybe this leads us to the final thought for you, our listener, to ponder. Considering this rapid development, this hybrid idea, what completely new things might AI be able to do soon? Things we aren't even considering right now.
That's the big question, isn't it? If AI can truly reason more efficiently and perhaps even improve itself through methods like IDA, what new frontiers could that open up?
Really feels like we're watching the next chapter unfold. Fascinating